Hooray!
Hooray! Emmy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
God, I don't know, but hopefully people will jump back in and see us. I'm gonna take it off the screen, and yes, notification is that we've gone live.
Thank goodness.
Wonderful to have you. Wonderful, and do you know what? It gives me a chance to play everything I've played all over again.
Great.
So it is beautiful. For anyone who's just joining us now, yes, we started streaming about 15 minutes ago, but poor Emmy just couldn't get on, and now she sounds crystal clear. I'm just going to get her to turn her down a little bit so we don't have any feedback.
Yeah,
I can hear slight feedback.
Is that a bit better?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And breathe. Oops. And breathe. That's it. Emmy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, that's fine. And it's always tried to be the one that's unflappable. So let's just enjoy today for whatever it is. I'm just removing the post that we were up earlier, and hopefully now everyone will see the new one coming in. Emmy, here we are on a Wednesday. It's all about you show. As again, I said, thank you for joining me. Introduce yourself to the audience and just a little bit, because I'll be digging in a bit later.
Yeah.
A little bit about yourself, who Emmy P is.
Okay, so I am a spoken word artist, and I'm an ADHD speaker as well. So I speak at a lot of events about having ADHD, my journey with ADHD, and some of the positives about that, because I think for so long, most of my life, was a real focus on all the negative things about having ADHD. I also
when you say the negatives, give us a brief, just give us a brief synopsis when you say negative.
Yeah, well, I would say, for everyone, I suppose, with ADHD, those things display differently, especially between gender differences as well. Like, so men with ADHD display different symptoms to women. But for me, when I was growing up, there was no sort of real signs when I was a young child of me being any different to my peers, really. I made loads of friends and things were all very good. But as I was getting older, things were becoming more and more noticeable. And the main negatives for me, and always have been, still are in my adult life, is sort of my inability to maybe control my emotions. I'm a really forgetful person, really disorganized person, and a really anxious person as well. And whilst I'm, a very loud character, another thing that comes with having ADHD, a lot of that was overshadowed by the fact that, most of the time I was really insecure and had crippling low self-esteem, and all of those things were a real lot to deal with, especially back when I was at school, because there wasn't much information about ADHD.
So, I was going to ask you that.
I always thought that ADHD was just the naughty kid in class. I didn't realise that it was a lot of other things other than behaviour. I thought it was all behaviour, when actually that is such a small part of the condition.
And don't you find that that's the first thing that teachers or the school itself draws upon, rather than identify that it's actually a condition? Let's not say it's just a condition. It's like being dyslexic, but because they're not knowledgeable, you're just the naughty kid. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's true. And I think, especially with schools, I do a lot of work in and out of schools, and, at youth groups and stuff like that. And I teach music to children and stuff like that. And I see firsthand that, schools and teachers within schools want to do more, but there just isn't the funding or the resources. And it's shocking, really, to know how many, in all of the training that I've done on ADHD, which has been quite a lot over the years, is because I've gone out and sought that. And, I think that there's such a lack of awareness and knowledge for what ADHD actually is, rather than what we know from the media, which is a lot, as we said, the behaviour side of things.
Yeah, and that's kind of glorified.
Yeah.
And it makes people think that it's just having ADHD is just you're bad. And it isn't. It really just isn't. growing up, so let's go right back to the beginning and bring ourselves to where you are now,
Yeah.
because I think you're phenomenal.
Oh, thank
And
you.
so let's, when how when you were first said you had, what age were you actually identified that you may have a ADHD?
So
Because
this is the conversation that I always have, and this is when anybody who asks me this is normally left sort of open mouth, like, what?
yeah,
Is because I would say those real outbursts of emotion, those sort of disorganized traits, the lack of attention, all of that stuff, and my crippling low self-esteem, the way I was acting out, all of that was really coming into play when I was about 14 years
oh
old.
wow,
And yeah, so, whilst, when my mum looks back at, nursery reports and stuff like that, because when I did finally get diagnosed, they asked for sort of a bit of like collateral, as if to say, examples of how this has impacted different areas of your life. And when I was in sort of nursery and reception, even though I thought, I was just a normal kid like everybody else, there were some signs in little things that teachers maybe said that back then we just thought it was nothing. But there was little glimmering signs of, like, in my report, it used to say things like Emmy has, really low concentration. She's very fickle, so she moves from one thing to another. I never really had a best friend. I just moved from one thing to the next, and I never stayed in one area. And that's really interesting because I think that's what it's been like throughout my life. I'm always looking for the next best thing. And, I sometimes get myself into really sort of toxic and self-destructive behaviors because it's a fix of something exciting for me. And that's,
right, right,
there's a real link there between that, like ADHD and addictive patterns as well, which I think,
yes,
but
yes,
so I think I was sort of that sort of age, like coming into the age of when I was, starting secondary school and then moving through secondary school, those things were really starting to manifest and show themselves. And I think before that, they were maybe masked in different ways because
yeah,
everyone's kid can be a bit disorganized,
absolutely,
and
absolutely,
everyone's child can be forgetful at times, or, act out in anger. But for me, I always think the best way to describe it is it's when it's consistent, when it's a constant thing day in, day out. And even
right.
now as an adult, I'm 31 years old, and every single day I leave
You
the
look like you're
house,
bloody 12.
every day I leave the house, I've forgotten something.
Yeah,
And I'm not talking like something that, I'm talking things that I need every day that should just be a given now that I need. Like my keys, my phone, my wallet. I can leave the house without two of them every day and get halfway down. And then I'm like, oh, no, wait, hang on. And that's every single day. And, even at work, it's, having timetables for things and thinking, no. And luckily, I'm lucky like that. I've got a good group of people around me that are really sort of, no, we need to be here and sort of hurry me along. And my
yeah,
partner's really good at that as well. And mum and dad have just had to get used to it. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But at 14, when, was it, what made your parents take that next step to say, look, I need to find out, she can't always be misbehaving or,
Yeah.
thoughtful,
And
or there has to be something.
yeah,
How
and I
did that come
think
about?
that was, well, this was, and it's sad really because of the lack of resources within the NHS, not just within neurodiversity, but with all mental health conditions, because of the constant budget cuts and the lack of resources, and, just a lack of knowledge amongst people, is that when I originally went to my doctors, my GP, I remember them saying, this could be a hormonal thing. It's probably
Oh,
puberty,
wow.
or, it could be something that she grows out of, and these feelings, And so I kind of just moved through life going into these appointments and going into different medical settings, and them saying, oh, maybe she's depressed, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And it was always kind of pushed aside. And it wasn't until later on in life, like, once I'd got my diagnosis, and then I'd really discovered there is no resources or nothing for ADHD. So I live in Essex. And when I was looking for, some like-minded people, because I felt hugely isolated. And I honestly think that, 90% of my mental health problems come back off the fact that I maybe didn't get that support that I needed
That's
when I was
right.
younger,
Yeah.
because I felt like a complete outsider. And when I was acting out when I was a teenager, it was because I thought, I know I'm different. I feel different from everyone, but I don't know why. I just feel like
Why?
I'm constantly getting stuff wrong. And why do I have to put twice as much effort into my life than anyone else does? And I still don't see any results. And, you know, and not just academically, because actually academically I was pretty average. There was no worries there. It was just the basic social, you know, things that you need to get through life. And I was looking not that long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, looking for like sort of just to find some like-minded people, especially some like-minded women that might be a bit like me in my area. And there is not one self-help group or even counselling group or any kind of resources for ADHD within Essex
Are
at all.
you,
Not one.
what, in this right now, in
Right
this day
now.
and age, there isn't. You
Not
have
for
to search.
adults, no.
Oh, wow. What? Okay, we'll come back to that bit. You know, this is something I want to ask you. What were the things that stuck with you all this time? So here you are, 14, 15. Your parents had to make that, make that step to find out that you've got ADHD. But things are being said to you. What are the things that made you feel that this is not right? There's something not right, and you don't like what people are saying? Because
Yeah.
it must demolish your self-confidence.
Yeah. I know the one specific thing that, you know, there's loads of things that were said, you know, even by sort of teachers and stuff that really impacted me. And when I was I remember being in year 10 or 11, and I was on, you know, report card for, not that my behaviour was terrible, but, you know, I was the class clown and I would often act up. And I was on a report card where I had to bring the report card in and my mum had to sign it. And then the school had to sign it to say that I'd been in school and got through the day, and they would write any comments on how my day went. And I was always late to class, always, and always forgetting my things that I needed. And I had my friend Rob, who is still my best friend to today. He lived across the road from me, and he used to walk to school with me. And he used to literally be like, "Have you got this? Have you got that?" He'd remember
Oh
everything for me. And well,
no.
we'd go to school together. And once we were in there, oh, I'm down at the bottom now. I don't know why I've done that. That's
No, no,
it.
I want to put you on the screen by yourself, you see, while you're
Oh, okay.
speaking.
Um,
That's what I'm trying to do. Give you the
yeah, and
maximum. Yeah.
whilst I was sort of walking on my way to school and remembering all this stuff, I went into my lesson, and my lesson started at say 8:45, but I turned up at 9, so I was 15 minutes late. And I walked in, and my teacher said in front of the class, "Oh, you know, typical, late again," that kind of thing. And of course, actually, to be fair to my teacher, she probably had had enough, because she didn't know that there was, you know, some underlying issues there. And I remember her sort of what felt like sort of belittling me in front of all of my class for a good 15 minutes. And in the end, I picked up my stuff and I walked out the class just before we was about to start this test. And as I walked out of the class, the thing she said to me before was, "That's the thing with you, Emmy, you quit with everything. You're a
Oh
quitter."
wow.
And that has really stuck
What
with
did
me
you think she
because,
was going to achieve with that?
and that it's so strange because that actually immediately reinforced that within me. I am a quitter. I'm not good enough. I can't do the things. I'm not good enough. And one of the biggest things with ADHD that most people don't know about is a real struggle to finish any project you start. So that could be a creative project, a sort of academic one, even plans. And quite often, even now in my adult life, I'll think of a great idea and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, no, I can't be bothered with that anymore. And I'll move on to the next thing. And I am interested and I wanted to learn and I want to be a successful adult and I want to do all the things that I love to do. But for some
Yeah.
reason, there always seems to be something that holds me back from achieving all of the things that I need to do to better myself. That's the
Yeah.
worst thing I think about having ADHD, is that I know the things I need to do to maybe make myself feel better, but I have the complete inability to make it happen.
But you've told yourself all these things. So now you've been told you've got ADHD. You're coming into your adult years now. How
Yeah.
did that, how did you the transition, knowing this is what you had? What were the questions that you were asking yourself? Because you're already being told you're a problem child. You're always late, and you're having to say to yourself, well, what is really good about me?
Yeah.
That why is everyone at my self-confidence? Now I know I've got ADHD. You're trying to stick 2 fingers up, or 3 or 4, how many you want to,
Yeah.
at the past, but you're still having to be transitioning into the future. How do you cope with that? What are your coping mechanisms? Is what I should
I
ask.
think my coping mechanisms for a long time were all of the things that were bad for me, and I'm quite good at pressing the self-destruct button
Oh
when
my
things
God,
get
tell me
tough.
about it. Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, through all of my 20s, I was in and out of relationships that were bad for me. And a lot of that was my fault, because I was openly sort of going out and choosing these relationships because I felt like they filled some kind of void within me. Because I felt like if I could help someone else, if I could be busy with someone else, then I wouldn't have to look after myself, really. And
Got you.
I've only really discovered that later on in life through therapy and stuff. But yeah, just constantly in and out of sort of bad friendships, bad relationships, in and out of jobs, not really sticking to one job, and just having to rely on my parents and other people to kind of support me in all areas of my life, which was really debilitating, actually, to go into adulthood and
I was
to
going to
feel like
say
you haven't got a grip on your life.
it must be, because you're having to deal with life. Life is different, not in school. Life is now coming out
Yeah.
and having to deal, as you said, different jobs, different relationships. When you were saying about the relationship, did you ever tell anyone in your relationship, look, I've got ADHD, this is who I am? How did they deal with it? How did that,
Well, it's interesting because it's only in sort of even my first couple of relationships, there was, talk of that, but there was no official diagnosis at that point. So still, even at that point in my early adult life, there was that quiet knowledge that that's what it was, but without getting the support I needed. So it was kind of, it was madness. It was kind of like it was something that I discussed, and, it was there, but nothing was happening about it.
happening? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was awful. That was awful. And it's only sort of in since 2000, and this is crazy to me. It's only maybe, I want to say 2016. So we're talking 5 years ago, that I started getting the help I needed.
And you're 31 now.
Yeah.
5 years ago, that was 24, 26.
Yeah.
You got help.
Yeah.
And when you say help, was that help through therapy?
Through therapy, the option.
Oh, I've lost. Oh, there you are. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
still
Here
here,
we go.
sorry.
I'm here. We're here.
Which has continued to be an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
Even
Was that?
medication, hang on, I'm just checking my settings to see that you can hear me. Oh, you can.
Oh, I can hear you perfectly now.
Okay, perfect.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was like an ongoing thing to find the right medication for me, because as an adult, especially if you're taking other tablets like I was, there's a lot of things that you can't mix with certain things, and
That's correct.
side effects could be quite great. And yeah, so that was an ongoing thing as well. But it's quite nice now because it really feels like, even though life is, can still be really difficult, it really feels like in those last few years I've found so much more of myself, because it's like all of those years spent not knowing, it was like as soon as that started to happen, it was a huge weight just lifted off
I
my
was going to say it's a
shoulders. Yeah.
relief, isn't it? Because
Sorry,
I
Valerie, I
guess.
can't hear you again.
Oh, can you hear me now? 1 2 1 2. Oh wow. I can hear you beautifully. And now you can hear me. I'm going to keep saying 1 2 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me? I hope I don't lose you because your story is absolutely just bubbling up to the surface. How are we doing? Let's see. Can you hear me? No?
No, I can't hear
Still
you.
can't hear me. Okay, you're gonna have to log back out again. I'll keep talking.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is, you can hear. I can hear you perfectly. So what I'm going to do is, I am going to play a piece by you with Izzy. Can you hear me? So log back out. Log out. And that's it. She's got me now. Excellent. Oh, right. It's just been a nightmare with, I think somebody out there definitely doesn't, mind you, I know people don't like me, but it's okay. But the powers that be is definitely don't want Emmy to tell her story, but we're not going to give up because she's right back. Let's see.
Hello, I can hear and see you.
Fabulous. Okay, so we've come to where you are, 26 for the first time. You are now getting help.
Yeah.
You're now being given the right treatment, because, and this is something that I'm hoping that when people watch this on the replay on YouTube and they get to this point, that ADHD, you can be diagnosed really late. It's not necessarily when you're 5, 6, 7.
No.
I'd like to think that now things have moved on a little bit better, as you just, as you already said. Coming to 26, you now got the weight off your shoulder. You're a musician. When did you get into the music? How were you able to sustain keeping that musicality and your spoken words?
That has always been the easiest thing, because the one of the things I love most of the time about having ADHD is an extreme sort of hyper focus and ability to, like, you normally have one thing that you're really obsessed with and love doing. And for me, that was always writing, singing, and performing. Always. Like, there's never been a moment of my life when that hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
And when I was at school, I was always into performing and singing, and was in bands. And then I went into college and studied that, and then went to music school in London, and then finished music school and was in more bands. And then I was like, okay, well, I love writing, I love poetry, I love music. How can I maybe fuse the two together? So now I kind of perform as a musician and perform as a spoken word artist separately, but then sometimes fuse the two as well. Yeah.
Yes. And did you find that this was one thing that you stuck with?
Yeah.
Because
and I always will. Because
so that was the thing that you were fixated on. So music allowed you, and spoken word allowed you to keep that concentration, kept you passionate. It wasn't something that you want to just pick up today and then drop them out tomorrow.
And also being able to talk about it, because I think, like, I'm not someone who, I'm not a confident, even though I'm really confident when I'm on stage, really confident, and that's where I feel at home.
I would never think that.
Like, my worst nightmare in normal life, day-to-day life, is having to have a one-on-one conversation with someone, especially someone new. But I'm perfectly comfortable doing this because I'm talking about something I love, and this is what I love, talking about this. And anything to do with ADHD now, whether it be through spoken word, I love the fact that I've managed to talk about that and it be something I enjoy rather than something I hate.
Right.
And because I love spoken word and music so much, and because it's the one thing I've never given up on, ever. And even down to, I went to drama school, and I like acting. I've always loved acting, and I think I was quite talented at acting.
I can see that within your spoken words. You remind me of going, like, when, back in the day when we used to go to drama school, which is like Anna Shares. And you've got that whole Anna Share thing about you, which is most of the actors from Anna Shares, have all gone on to EastEnders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you have that whole the dramatic side of you, and being spoken word is about delivery,
Of course, yeah.
and
And I
you've got that.
Yeah, and I think that, I loved acting, but I didn't want to do it all the time. Like, it didn't
Yeah.
hold my, so I dropped out of acting, and then I went to another college, and then I soon dropped out of that, and it wasn't, and it was job after job after job, and then I started. I feel like I needed a lifeline, and I don't often say this to this person, but I feel like the lifeline for me was one of my best friends, Jodie. She runs, with all of my group of friends, runs a performing arts school, and at the time I didn't have a job, and I didn't really have much self-belief, and didn't have anyone that believed in me. And she said, you can teach singing, we've got some children, maybe you can teach singing. I started off doing a couple of hours here and there, and then that moved on to me teaching guitar and singing, and working with
Oh
these
wow! So you
children.
actually fell into it. It's
Yeah,
someone that said,
and I've
"I
worked
love that."
there 13, 14 years now. And if I have to take a day off, it's like the worst thing in the world. I hate being away from it. Like, that's the
Oh
thing. And that's why I know that I'm doing something I love. And,
yes,
we write shows together, and we make music, and I work in the school and teach at the school and music. And I love that as well. Yeah, I moan about getting up early sometimes, but I go in and I do something I love every day.
yeah,
And that's what keeps me there, because I'm doing the one thing that I can't give up on.
give
So
up
I've
on.
managed
Yeah,
to find that happy balance.
that's what I was going to say to you. When you mentioned earlier that up until 26, and when you've got yourself, you found yourself is the word I'm going to use. It's like you
Yeah.
found yourself, and you were able to drop all that dead weight, because for once you've now got that diagnosis, you know exactly why you couldn't hold on to memorable things and all the things that these teachers said about you. You're not broke. You started a podcast, and it's
Yeah.
called If It's Not Broke, Why Fix It?
Yeah.
Excellent slogan. It's like
And it's
one of those,
because there's a
brilliant,
line in one of my poems, one of the ones that you shared just before I came on, called
which I'm
God
going to
in
share again.
Control. Yeah, and there's a line in that, and whenever I perform that poem, this sounds ridiculous, but where I live, we've got stairs that lead up to like our masonette, and the stairs that lead up there, there's always teenagers that sit on the stairs, and they sort of smoke and get in the way, and
Yeah,
sort of,
as they do.
yeah, teenagers kind of just roaming the streets, causing trouble. And that video went online, and it got shared by quite a few people. And then when I was going up to my house, and I had my shopping bags, and one of the girls, who's like 14, 15, was like, "If it ain't broke, don't fix
Fix
me," and
it.
like shouted it up the stairs. She was like, "Sick, mate, sick." I was like, yeah. And then from then, there's been a few people that are like, "Oh, I love that line." And then I thought,
Yeah, I do.
actually, I
I'm
need
going
to
to
do
play some
something
of
with
it.
it.
I'm going to play something with it. This is, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm going to play the 1, 2, 3, but and there's another one, but this one.
1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Attention. It's always been a bone of contention, because it's not that I was lying, I just forgot to mention. Please don't take it personally, there simply is no reinforcement. You try retaining information when your brain has decided it ain't important. But some things stay with me forever and distract me from the protocol, like this little number rhyme that keeps me awake at night that I learned in 2005 in school. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. If I'm not acting by accordance or the rules, they'll call me non-compliant. Small minds showering me with their ignorance, but you can't play God with neuroscience. Caught in a vortex, my frontal cortex controls my daily function. Hard to focus when your Bugatti brain is stuck at every junction. But living life at full speed, for me, I see the benefit. But I eat my own insides, plagued with low self-esteem, because society taught me it was a deficit. Attention deficit. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. And for most, it may seem illogical and beyond all comprehension. But there are things in this world that my transmitters concluded were worthy of my attention. And in that there is no deficit. And I could only see the benefit of drowning in the passion of my art, because the bones in my body were meant for it.
Proactive or hyperactive, there is no difference. We all start at square one. So I work twice as hard if I want it enough, because bottom line, I get shit done. Tapping, clapping, clicking, flicking, eyes are darting, head is glitching, screens. It means my head is a Mac. And every part of me is browsing every open tab. And every time I try to curse, the cursor clicks the X. And in the time it's taken to close, I thought the next one starts to refresh. So I try my best. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. And whilst considered a disorder, I've learned to disagree, because the colour, chaos and disarray are the bits I love the most in me. So show me the disorder in compassion, turning social rejection into resilience, because a neurodivergent against the clock can display creative brilliance. Show me the disorder in taking risks, turning your wildest dreams into fruition. Show me the disorder in razor sharp humour, persistence and ambition. Show me the disorder in curiosity, in movement, expression and fun. Show me the disorder in ADHD, because in me, I can't see 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1.
That has to be one of my favorites, I'm not going to lie. And you've done quite a lot. And I'm going to show a bit of this one as well.
I've lost you again, Valerie.
Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to show this. Let's have a look.
Thankful for the relief, though it's brief, but then I miss me. I miss the me I used to be. I ain't broke, so don't fix me. Imagine, if you will, volume control. You know, the twisty knob on a stereo or a car radio. Now imagine it's at 100 and it keeps spinning round, and no matter how much you want it to, it won't turn down. Now imagine that cacophony in the caverns of your head, and it's only getting louder when I try and go to bed. It's every wire of my brain being caught on a sound. It's the lights, it's the chaos of a merry-go-round. Because I'm tuned into higher things, distracted by higher things. I grow wings, my soul sings, distracted by higher things. The adrenaline of waiting for a beat to drop, it makes me sick to my stomach, but I don't want it to stop. Adderall and Ritalin, Metadate and Folikin, Citralopam, Diazepam, Prozac and Quetiapine. I'm thankful for the relief, though it's brief, but then I miss me. I miss the me I used to be. I ain't broke, so don't fix me.
That's the one. If I ain't broke, don't try and fix me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. You can hear me perfectly, can't you, my darling?
Yes, I can.
I think what it is, I think it's when sometimes when I play a video, it cuts you out. And I think that might be what's distracting everything else. I love that. How is the podcast going?
Good. The thing is, it's crazy though, because I did one series. So I started it in lockdown, and I started it in lockdown because it's something I've wanted to do for a while, but I'd never sort of had the time to do it because I'm always busy. And I was like, if I'm going to make the most of this lockdown, then I need to do something like creative, because I'm just going to go insane. So I thought, okay, well, what can I do? And I said, I want to do a podcast. And at the time, I didn't have any equipment. I didn't even have a laptop. I was like, I've got nothing. I don't know how I'm going to make this happen. But, you know, I was kind of obsessed with the idea of doing it. So I quickly figured it out and learned how to use all the stuff and got the equipment that I needed. And I was thinking of a podcast name for ages, and we went through loads of different ideas. And then my other half was like, why are you not just calling it Ain't Broke, Don't Fix Me? And I was like,
I love it.
It's been there in front of me the whole time, and I haven't even thought of that. And that was the perfect name for it. So we did one series, and that was really good, really successful. Did a couple of bonus episodes, and I did pre-record stuff ready for another series this year, but I'm going to wait until after July and meet up with them people and re-record them, because there was something about doing it over Zoom for me that there was like a couple of glitches when you do sort of like, we're lucky with this, like in the fact that we've been able to stop and come back and you know, but when you're recording a podcast, if you've got a sound glitch in between halfway through, then technically you kind of need to do that whole section again. And there was a few episodes that I did, and I was like, oh, that went really, really well. And then I listened back to it, and there was like 3 or 4 moments where it was just like, and I thought, oh no. So those people, I still want to, you know, speak to them, and we'll get those episodes out at some point. But I think it's best decision to wait for now.
So, I mean, like this would go on the podcast, the Standing in the Truth podcast as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted to get as much info out of you for anyone that's listening, that the things that you've had to grow up with, things that have been said to you that have made you, you know, doubt yourself, you know, carried all that weight of feeling that, and you're probably not showing it out to anybody. No one's probably aware, because you were putting most of your energy into your spoken words.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's how powerful it is. And even speaking without even letting anyone know that you're ADHD, because it's a thought process, and you're talking out what you're thinking.
Yeah.
That's what hooked me when I first, you know, started listening to you. And then to find that you've got the most awesome voice. I need to play this so people can hear this, because that was so heartfelt. But I'm going to play this. And hopefully if you cut out, jump back in.
Yeah.
Got my driver's license last week, just like we always talked about. And you were so excited for me to finally drive up to your house. But today I drove through the suburbs crying 'cause you weren't around.
And you're probably with that blonde girl who always made me doubt. She's so much older than me. She's everything I'm insecure about. Today I drove through the suburbs. How could I ever love someone else?
And I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. And I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. Guess you didn't mean what you wrote in that song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past the street. And all my friends are tired of hearing how much I miss you, but I kinda feel sorry for them, 'cause they'll never know you the way that I do. Yeah, today I drove through the suburbs and pictured I was driving home to you. And I know we weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. Oh, and I just can't imagine how you could be so okay now that I'm gone. Guess you didn't mean what you wrote in that song about me. 'Cause you said forever, now I drive alone past the street.
Oh, Emmy, I love that song. I'm like, oh, and I'm not just saying it. I played it out in the garden today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I just sat in the sunshine and I got the laptop out and it just played. And, you know, my other half went, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's MEP."
Yeah.
And that was him that was ringing. He says,
Oh,
"Did she
really?
got on yet?" That's when, you know, when we started the show, and he ran me, goes, "Oh no," and yeah, she's here, she's joined us now, it's okay. But it's beautiful. How did you manage to record that? Because I can see that like a Zoom or
Yeah,
into
so
places.
we recorded it. The lady that I'm singing with in that song is also
Lovely
a singing
voice as well.
yeah, is also a singing teacher that I know.
Ah,
And
okay.
I used to teach her when she was a little girl. And now
Wow.
it's come full circle, and now she's my friend. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
we sing quite a lot together, and we both happen to have the same studio set up. So we recorded it separately, then pieced it together, and then we filmed ourselves from home and basically put it together that way. Yeah.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
have to say, totally amazing.
Thank
I
you.
love it. And so you've also got one here. What is Woman Behind the where am I here? Women behind the box.
Woman
Sorry.
Beyond the Box. Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah. Well, that was. I've just noticed my name spelled wrong at the top there.
I did as well. When I was researching you, I kept thinking, I'm sure her name's Amy Pate. Why is this person called Amy Pate?
The woman
That's
who was
hilarious.
in that article.
Thank God it wasn't me then.
Yeah, that was really interesting. That was Women Beyond the Box is a UK project that would to name and award the top 50 UK inspirational neurodivergent women in the UK. So that's anyone
Fantastic.
in the UK who has done something positive with their platform and spoken about, that. So that could be anything from autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, Tourette's syndrome, anything like that is using that and turning it into something great. And, the list of people that I was on there with,
That must be amazing.
Yeah.
It's funny because you talking about, I've already had two parter. I had a 2-parter series last month to do with autism, and the audience that we had on was tremendous. And one of the things that was mentioned within that series, because it's part 1 and part 2, people seem to think that ADHD is autism, and autism gets mentioned in ADHD.
Yeah.
Were you at any point mentioned that you may have autism, even though, because there's many forms of autism, there's different spectrums of autism, and it's amazing that if a child is humming, or they're distractive, or they are disruptive, the first thing they say, they think is ADHD or you got autism.
Yeah.
Were you ever in that category? How was that ever presented to you?
No, never in that category. And I suppose there was times where I did wonder myself, like, oh, there's a few things there that's, I can see some links there. But for me, there was quite a few things that didn't match up with me. But I mean, there are so many links in between the two conditions. But I think that's what people forget in the fact that it is a spectrum. All of these things, any condition.
Exactly, a spectrum.
I know people with ADHD really well who physically can't sit still in one space, who would never be able to hold this conversation. And I know people with ADHD who are, not forgetful and not inattentive and actually have great concentration, but they're just really hyperactive. And, that plays out in different ways, just like a lot of people on the autism spectrum could be mute and not talk and non-verbal.
That's correct.
Or you could have someone super,
really high sensitivity,
clever, and
absolutely, yes. What are the things, now speaking from someone with ADHD, and you had to speak to someone else and say the things to look out for, because again, you mentioned earlier that doctors are not educated about it. Maybe now that people who are ADHD are now educating other people are taking more notice that don't just look at someone's child and say they're a problem child. What are the things that you would tell a parent or another individual who is so down on themselves, thinking there's something wrong with me, never being diagnosed? What are the things they should look out for, and what should they do?
It's interesting, and I think the first thing always that I would say, if you're a parent, like, trust your gut, because you will go through and you will speak to loads of other doctors and teachers and other parents who will all have an opinion, but your child. And, I've had these conversations with my mum before, and we've spoken about actually, the conversations I have with my mum and the things that happened inside this house. No one else saw that. No one else knew the full extent of what that was.
Yeah.
And now, trust your gut. And I would say the other thing is, is it impacting you in more than one setting? That's a really big one, I think, because I think it's quick for people. You can look at it in two ways. There are some people who maybe don't get the help that they need, and a lot of things go unnoticed because they are, there's lots of other forgetful people, and there's lots of other anxious people and people with low self-esteem, and sometimes I'm late and forget things. Yeah, sure. But is it happening consistently in all aspects of your life? Because you could pick me up and put me anywhere and I would be the same wherever you put me. Even if I was on a 5-star holiday in the Caribbean, living my best life, I would still be forgetting things every day. I would still be quite emotional. It would only take one thing to maybe set me off that wouldn't go the way I need it to. It's, you know, if things change last minute, that's a massive trigger for me. You know,
which is similar to autism, and this is another spectrum, which you were saying.
Exactly.
Things that change, it makes you say to yourself, "Oh my God!" It puts you in a spin. It puts you in a frenzy because change doesn't help.
It's uncontrollable for me, and that's the side I think that I mask the most in terms of with my friends and stuff like that. Is as soon as I'm out with people, I'm the loud, confident, cocky one. But behind closed doors, if, you know, a slight change of plan, that could be enough to sort of, well, I do have panic attacks over that kind of stuff.
Right. Yes.
Real emotional outbursts. But yeah, you could, you know, I always say that if you can pick yourself up and put yourself anywhere in any situation and those things would still happen, then that's showing it's
There's something
displaying in all aspects of your life, and it's not just something that happens every now and then.
Yeah. And those are the things to look out for.
Yeah.
So it's like coming out of your comfort, you know, do you find that you're having to come out of you can't come out of that comfort zone?
Yeah.
Because it absolutely sends you into a tizzy.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't know where you're going from there. How did your parents, you mentioned your parents earlier, what effect did it have on your parents, if you don't mind sharing that with us? I don't have to go too deep, because you mentioned it, saying, you know, the things that you don't see on the outside, because again, it affects your mental health, because you'll have panic attack, anxiety, all of those things that you hide from the general public, because you want to be seen, not the problem person, don't you?
Yeah.
What are things like that?
I'm really lucky because I'm super close to my parents and I've got amazing parents. I'm actually sitting in my mum and dad's house right now.
Okay.
we just come back. Me and my mum went out and we actually went for afternoon tea. It was really nice. But yeah, and I've always had a close relationship with them, and it was emotional, you know, getting to that point, because I think for them as well, it's, you know, must be a weight lifted for them as well in many ways.
Absolutely.
Because we've been through so much together. Things that, you know, they've had to fight tooth and nail to make sure that I'm happy and that I'm able to get the support I needed. And there is nothing that I couldn't ask them that they wouldn't do for me. There just isn't. And I'm really lucky in that respect and fortunate to have people like that. And I think, you know, for a lot of people, sometimes for a lot of parents, you can be in denial about these things. Not my child would have that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm lucky my mum and dad haven't been like that, but I think it's been hugely difficult for them at times, just because I've got a diagnosis, it doesn't make me any more bearable to be around at times.
Exactly. Yes. You know? And speaking from a standpoint now that, you know, here we are, we're up to where you are, 31 years old. You are phenomenal, as I said, phenomenal. You're a speaker in various, you know, radio stations. You've done, I think, did you do the TEDx as well, didn't you, or something?
Yeah, I did the BBC London featured poet thing. Yeah,
so you are a champion slammer, aren't you?
Yeah.
Listen, folks, as again, anyone that's, you know, I can see people in the chat room and literally watching this on the replay, please check out MEP. As I said, this wasn't just about the ADHD, it's about the woman behind sharing how her life, her thought process, the way how she handles. 26 years is a long time to go not being diagnosed. I'm not going to, you know, and I am not an expert.
And it's lonely as well. That's the one word I would use. It's a lonely feeling, because I went all of them years never meeting another woman with ADHD.
And do you find now that you are just now, you said that there's still a lot of groups that are not around, but are you able to, you know, put groups together? Are you bringing other women together?
Yeah, and that's what I love now.
To understand that
I'll post a video and then I'll get, I don't know, like, even if it's only, say I get like loads and loads of comments, but then there'll be like 3 or 4 from women with ADHD, and they're the ones that I love reading, because I'm like, this is what I wanted in the first place. This is why I started doing it, because I felt like I wanted to be the person that I needed when I was younger.
Yeah.
That's what I needed to be.
And so now you're going to, it's like you've had to go through all of that to give back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're now sharing 26 years of not knowing that you had ADHD.
Yeah.
The fact that you've using your musical talent within the schools, trying to use your words to allow people. What I find with you as well, I don't know if this is what you do, this is what I've picked out of you as well.
Yeah.
Your spoken words allow people who don't communicate well to express themselves.
Mm.
Do you find that after you've done some shows and your spoken words, someone says, I relate to you.
Yeah.
I relate to you.
Yeah. It's mad. And there've been a few people like that. And the best thing for me is there's been 2 women who came up to me after, speaking. One was at Nutritious Minds event, actually.
Oh, yes. Nutritious Minds and Rachel Lee.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of them was at that event, and another one was just a really small gig that I did where I was performing and happened to perform that poem. And 2 women off the back of that noticed, hang on, there's a lot of things there that ring true for me.
Absolutely.
And since then I've been diagnosed with ADHD.
See, and this is what I'm saying, because it's not just youngsters.
No.
The problem child, people think that if you've got a problem child, it's ADHD.
Yeah.
Or they realize it's, autism. But getting to 26, I just think it's horrendous that you were not diagnosed, but you're still using your words now to let other women and people, as I said, people who can't communicate.
Yeah. Well, one of those women that I was just telling you about is in her 40s and has only just been diagnosed,
Wow.
It's mad.
40 and just being diagnosed with ADHD. She must have been going through a terrible anxiety.
Yeah. Must have been.
And wondering that, what is wrong with her? Why is it that she can't complete a task? Why is it that she can't have a decent relationship? All of that, because all of these things do happen within ADHD.
Yeah.
Or from other people that I've spoken to, they cling on to something and they don't feel they can let that go.
Yeah.
As you said, it's like an obsession, correct?
Yes.
Well, here we are, and I'm coming to the end of all of this. What next is there? What next is there for MEP?
Do you know what? It's such a good question to ask, because I'm asking myself that at the moment, because lockdown has been such a weird time that I've really struggled as well, not having the thing that I need as therapy, because I use music and art as therapy. So not having that has been really difficult. So for now, moving forward, I'm just looking forward to going back out and performing and talking at more events and doing another series of the podcast. And moving forward, I will be happy if I just continue to do that forever. And I just hope that
someone has just asked the question, ADHD, what is the root behind the diagnosis? And and how does this form in, how can you notice that in a person? Great question, Natasha.
Yeah, how does this form in a person? Do you know what? It's really interesting, because they say, I don't know what the percentage is, but it is hereditary. So there's a high chance that if you've got parents with ADHD, that you could then have ADHD, and then your children could, and it runs in the family. And when I went for these appointments, the first thing they said, no, my mum and dad haven't got ADHD, and my grandparents never did. But then I don't know, because that wasn't a thing back then. People never spoke about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So maybe there were members of my family who struggled with different aspects of ADHD that maybe isn't my experience, but other things. And maybe it has come through that. other than that, I don't know. I really don't.
So there
know.
isn't actually a root diagnosis behind it.
No.
Are they saying that is it a chemical imbalance or anything like that? What is it that they're actually saying?
The biggest thing is that it really is it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, and the way that it was perfectly described to me is so the guy who diagnosed me did this for me, and I thought this is the best way to describe it. So he said, imagine like this is the thing in the trigger point in your brain that needs to be hit every single time you need to perform a really mundane task, like going to brush your teeth or going to shut the window or lock the door or put your shoes away, something really boring. The average neurotypical brain, everyday person, they see the thing that they need to do, trigger hits, they go do it. Now, for people with ADHD, the difference is that it needs to be something quite extreme for that trigger to hit, something exciting for that person, something that they're interested in, or you just don't hold their attention. So it's almost like you're constantly flicking, but it never quite reaches. So quite often I'll be like, oh yeah, I've got to do that, but I will never hit my trigger to remember it, and I'll never see that through. And that's why it's constant reminders. And I always use that. I don't think I've described it quite as well as he did, but basically,
no, I get it. I get it because when they have the children in school, they're jumping off one chair to another chair, and the teacher will say to them, "Can you sit still?" And they can't sit still, and they're moving around, and they jump to another chair, and then they'll get up, and then they'll go to the board, and that whole cycle. And again, they just think that the child is disruptive. And when in fact they've got ADHD, attention deficit. But there's also, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm right, if I'm wrong, sorry. You have kids that have ADHD that don't speak at all. They don't say anything.
Yeah.
What they do is they will just sit there. It all goes in, but nothing's coming out.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And they live in silence.
Yeah.
They actually live in silence.
Yeah.
And what it would take is, what's the word I'm looking for? A parent who is vigilant and try to get that out of the child, speak to the child, and then take that next step to take them to the doctors.
Yeah.
Is that another scenario of someone with ADHD? They have the mute side of them as well, which similar to autism. Am I correct?
Yeah. And like, there's certain things that, children who have ADHD, the specifically hyperactivity, a child might be constantly star jumping or running on the spot or jumping up and down, but that's because that is giving them endorphins that they need to hit that trigger, to feel something. And for me, that's what I feel like, that's what performing is for me, because I feel like I can feel really, I can be having the worst day and I can feel super anxious, but not just performing, because I don't need an audience. It can be, just performing in a room alone, or performing with friends, or writing a song and being like, oh, I've just written a song and I love it, and being excited about it. That hits the trigger for me every time. And that is like an absolute freedom from self moment. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what works. Natasha said excellent. She gets what you were trying to say, the excellent description. Before we get out of here, and I want people to see, because there's so much about you that we could, we try to cram it all in the 40 minutes that we've been on, is I want to see if I can get this up on the screen, and hopefully I can. This is another thing that you performed. And let me see if I can make sure it's on the screen first and foremost. And then, knock my cup over on my tea right here. Let's see if I'm trying to see if I can get it on here. Let's see if I can do that. Now, I want people to hear this. It's called Tea Light Candles.
Yeah.
Love that. Let's bring myself in. Here we go. Let's bring tea light. Now I've got it on my YouTube. So
hearts and careless with our loose tongues. Got me hooked on everything or something out of nothing, but for the first time in a long time, I think this might be something. Like after coating mouths like smoke and sugar cane, she don't waste time trying to bring me sunshine when I'm a sucker for the rain. It's a tough love, and with fists clenched, this fight or flight, we hold on tight when we know we fucked up. She says she needs a ride or die. She says she needs stability, because underneath the bricks and mortar, she's just porcelain fragility. But I think I've got the ability to hold her gently, keep her safe, making sure she doesn't break. But if she does, I'd glue each and every fragment of her broken back in place. I'd measure and mark and hang her like art, not afraid of our past or ashamed of our scars. And I tell her the moment we start hiding is when we lose who we are. It's a wild love, and I am reckless, she is brave, intensely craving all the bad stuff. I push my hands into her face to fill the spaces in my head. I watch her pupils dance around me as I push her wrists into the bed, because I love her dirty mouth and all the messy things she said. Her tongue, her teeth, her lips. Her tongue, her teeth, her lips. She grips and strips away my cover like I never felt with any other. I find pieces of her everywhere. Eyelashes from her spider eyes cling to kinks in my straw-like hair. The pages of my notepad, my words dripping in her venom. Smells, looks, coastlines, Kendrick songs in the pockets of my denim. She's the grain between my toes. She's the water around my ankles. She's vodka blankets, new romantics, sex, and tea like candles.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Oh. I love that. Let's get that off the screen now. Hold on a second. Tea light candles. If only I could write like that. Emmy, I think it's beautiful, and I want to thank you for coming on today. What a parting wisdom. And for those who have joined us late, thank you, Tasha, for coming on. We had technical issues as per normal. You know, I know, right? Crazy, sexy, cool. And there's so much more. She did cover, you missed all the other poems that she performed earlier, but you can catch her on the rerun. Where Emmy talks about the ADHD, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. She's the woman, she's part of the women behind the box, something like that. I think, you know, Tasha, you'd be brilliant, you know, to be on, because you are such an innovator. As I said, leave me with some enlightening words today, even if it's a poetry from the top of your head. What we want to hear, the final word to take us out. So before you do that, I want to thank you for sharing with us. Sharing. Thank you. Talk about ADHD, yourself, the things that you had to do to get to 26 and realize that you were not a failure. You were not a failure. That all the things that your teacher told you and people, your friends said about you, and then you find out that it really was just the chemicals in your head that just needed to be joined together to make you the person. But to be honest, as I said to you earlier today, you are a superhero.
Oh, thank you.
You are a superhero. And this is what someone told their child today. Daddy, I've got ADHD. And he said, no, you're no different, son. You're just a superhero. And that's the way I now look at this whole subject. There's nothing wrong. You're a superhero. Thank you for being today's hero. Thank you for the message that you've put in today's message that will go on YouTube for other people to hear what you've had to go through, your own anxieties, and how you've transformed them into words. Leave us with something today before we go.
The one thing that I always say, and I'm not gonna, this isn't a poem or anything like that, but the minute things started shifting for me, and the thing that I hold on to that keeps me positive is when my life was so much harder when I was concentrating on all the things I couldn't do. And the moment I tapped into all the things that ADHD brought out the best in me, so all the things that I was really good at, and put all of my energy into that, whenever I put all of my energy into the things that I'm brilliant at, and without concentrating on the things that I can't do, that's when things transform for me. So it's about tapping into the things that make your heart sing.
Oh my God, there it is. There it is. And try to destigmatize ADHD. it's something that you can. And she created, I think you can see the comments down below.
Yeah.
And Tasha has just said, preach. Emmy, we can't, I seriously, as I said, please check out Emmy.p on YouTube. She's also got her own, as I said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. She's on Spotify. That's her own podcast shows where you have various people that come on and speak on your podcast shows, don't they?
Yeah.
And sometimes you do your own spoken words.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for more people to talk to on my podcast. So if there's anyone who, you know, is interested in talking about mental health or any kind of neurodiversity or anything that makes you different, then I'd love to hear from you. So you can find me on Instagram at MEP, EMYP, MATE, MEP, mate.
And it's like, you know, I love the fact that we're sharing, because I do that on this platform too. We get lots of people coming on. So I will find them and I'm going to shove them your direction.
Yeah, please do.
You know what I mean? It's a great collaboration, and that's what it's all about. It's everybody. There's, as you know, Tasha and I say the same thing. And for anyone else that, you know, as I said, will come onto the show, it's each one teaches one. And just your words alone hopefully will resonate to somebody else that tunes in. So all you late joiners, I'm ever so sorry. You're going to have to go right back to the beginning to listen to the wonderful poetry that Emmy had produced, all the great things and the information that she shared. Emmy, I want to thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Tonight. Speak to you soon, my
I've
darling.
really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless of the technical glitch. And this is all on YouTube. It's all on the Facebook page. I'll send you a version of it that you can chuck up yourself. I'll send the links and everything else. But I will, hopefully, when this is all we can get out and about, we'll all see each other at another event. And I can listen to you again as per usual. God bless you.
Thanks very much, Valerie.
You're welcome, my darling. You're welcome.
Bye.
Good night and God bless. Bye, Emmy. Oh, you missed it all. It was truly, truly, truly a wonderful session. As I said, right at the beginning, we had gremlins galore. And I was dying with hay fever. I don't know if anyone could see it. Just really bad, itchy eyes. But for me, it was well worth that she stuck with it and we stuck with it. To everyone that's watching now, to anyone that's watching on the YouTubers and the Facebookers, as I can see, probably people are watching football right now and other little programs. To anyone that watches the rerun, I hope you enjoyed and you're able to recognize something within your children or people around you. Let's not look at someone and just judge them right there and then that they may be either autistic or they've got ADHD or they've just been wayward. Take your time, be observant, speak kindly, and maybe you may find that that person may have ADHD, and it doesn't make them a bad person. It is just a condition, and just that's all it is. And with that said, have a wonderful, it's going to start raining in the next couple of days. So like me, who's caught a bit of the sun, and I've enjoyed every little bit of it, enjoy the rainy weather that is to come. On Friday, I've got Back to the Music Shop show for all those who like when I bring in all the new, fabulous, wonderful new guests from around the globe. Join us back here with the Bush Bash Records, along with the not Sweetie Irie, with Sweet P and Bushkin again, and along with Production, who is in the house, who's got his latest single that's just come out on the 13th of May, and it's kicking up the airwaves. I'm glad that he's taken his time to join me 8 o'clock on Friday, 18th of June. And with that said, yes, you missed the goodies, but don't worry, watch the rerun. Enjoy the footy. Take care of yourself or enjoy something, whatever it is. But most importantly, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. We've only got one life to live. Remember that. Good night. God bless.